Okay, so I'm going to record the lecture on literature review. As a part of your MSc PhD thesis, you will have to write a section of literature review in your thesis, and this lecture would be based on the guideline for that literature review section. So let's start with why we have to conduct a literature review in the first place. So here is the list. It may not be the only reasons, but the major reasons are to improve your understanding on the subject matter of your study, to build your own expertise in the subject matter, to demonstrate your knowledge, and importantly, to identify the gap in the literature that your thesis or your research is going to fill up, and to update the reader. So your literature review should give enough background to your reader to understand what has already happened before in this specific research question, what were the gaps, and how your research is gonna fill up those gaps. And when you review your literature and summarize it in your thesis, so it needs to be comprehensive enough that your expertise is built, and it also has to be concise enough that you give the whole overview and indicate the gaps in literature to your reader. To review this literature, these are the 4 steps that you can follow. In the step 1, you can search. You would first want to systematically search the literature, and we'll talk about each of these steps clearly today. So first step is to search. Second step is to read your literature. And when you search, it is very obvious that you will get thousands of literature that will pop up from any search engine that you would be using. So first you will have to determine which of them are relevant. So prioritize them. And then you may not need to read everything of each and every paper or document that you have received or you have searched. So you have to prioritize your literature and read the full text of those that are of most relevant and important to your research topic. And then sometimes you just read the major concepts, and sometimes you can just get the snapshots of some literature. And then those that you prioritize, you would need to analyze it after reading. So for that, you also need to extract the information, analyze it, and organize it. So I encourage you to extract the most important information as you and when you are reading. So do not wait to complete your literature search and read everything and then extract, but it would be very helpful and efficient if you do it as you go. And then analyze it from your own perspective and from with your scientific background, and then organize it well. And finally, you will have to write everything, what you read, what are your takeaways, and present it in organized way, and then summarize it to your reader. And then what you do not do is copy and paste or paraphrase abstract of each and every literature that you have read. So the step 1 is the search. For the search, there are different sources that you can use, like theses, books, peer-reviewed journals, peer-reviewed conference proceedings, non-peer-reviewed journals and conferences, and technical reports, newspaper articles, recordings, online articles, etc. And to And out of these different sources, some are considered more credible than others. So for example, peer-reviewed journals are considered highly credible, and it also depends on like which journal has published it. So the journals with higher impact factors are considered more credible compared to journals with lower impact factor. But sometimes it also depends on contextual. So for example, a lot of articles from Nepal might be published in Asian contextual journals, or even a lot of articles from Nepal are published in Indian journals. So it also depends on where the journal, it also depends on what audience the journal is targeting. Uh, so just do not go after impact factor only as well. Non-peer-reviewed materials are also they're also termed as gray literature. They can be a very important source of information because not everything is published in a traditional way as an original article in a journal. But you really need to judge the quality of what you are citing. So if you are looking at, if you are reading some articles that has not been published in peer-reviewed journal, or even like thesis of some students or a dissertation, I highly encourage you to first like read it and then critically analyze it and then judge yourself whether or not that work is of high quality. So what about Wikipedia? So Wikipedia in current context has been a huge source of information. And I say that it is a good source of information, but but it is not considered of high quality in academia. But I would encourage to always check the original source document that the Wikipedia has used. And then based on that, you can decide whether a certain information in that from certain information from the source is to be used or not, but always cite the original source of information, not the secondary source of information. So when you determine like which article to review and which is not, I think these two criteria can be helpful to you. One is that you have to read the most relevant, which may be highly cited articles, and then more recent that are recently published articles. It will give you a more very comprehensive idea of like what has been popularly acknowledged or credited in that specific subject area, and what are the recent advances in those subject areas. There are multiple search engines, databases, and platforms that you can use. I think Google Scholar is very popular. There is PubMed. I highly encourage you to create an account on PubMed and then save all of your searches as you go. Web of Science is also very good source, and there are some specific databases for example, Econ Literature is a database for literature and economics, and then there is Chinal is more nursing researches are published there, and Cochrane is systematic reviews and meta-analysis are published here. And I highly also encourage you to look at the systematic reviews and meta-analysis that is also considered a very strong evidences in scientific literature. So yeah, and then always use multiple search engine, because one search engine may not give you a comprehensive or exclusive, like inclusive list of all publications. So use multiple. When you search, make it comprehensive. Also in terms of language, so most of us are inclined to only get into the literature that is published in English language, but again, I would encourage you to look for other language articles, especially there are nowadays a lot of articles also publish their abstract in English, so it would be helpful, and then you can check the abstract, and if it is very relevant to your research, then I would encourage you to go for translation and then use that article. Also be wide in terms of geography. Look for research from different geographical areas. Like for example, if you are doing research, of course you would be doing research in Nepal, so search articles just concentrating in Nepal, and then like maybe Asia, Europe, America, or wider geographically. And then in terms of scientific domains, you can go for strong as well as weak sources. For sure, journal articles, conferences, proceedings, and dissertations can be a good source. And but if you are doing research in a topic that is rare, that they do not have much background or much publications in these strong sources, then yeah, go for you can check into like other sources as well. But again, be very critical about using the source of the information that you are using. Always critically analyze the quality, and then based on that, judge whether or not you want to use that. After searching and prioritizing your searches, then you will get into reading. So when you read, always make sure that you are reading the relevant publications, recent publication, and contextual publications. And then while you read, just do not read is as like a general a reader, but like try to learn something out of it. So critically evaluate all of the sections like background, methods, whether or not that article is or that research is generalizable to the population of your interest that you would be doing your research in. What are the major strengths of that articles, and what are the major weaknesses, how those weaknesses or limitations can be filled up. And that will also guide you towards like how you can make your research more rigorous. So when you critically read the literature or your article, read everything, I would say. Read all of the sections of the articles that has been published. Don't limit yourself to abstract. Read the background and see whether or not it includes whether or not the authors have reported enough background information, like what are the burden of disease, impact of disease, benefits, etc., based on the research question. And then while you read the research methods, look into what methods are used, what are the pros and cons of that methods, and also think about like how you could have improved this study if you have to do it again. And then also critically analyze the data collection tools that has been used. Always see if the tool has been validated and if the tool is reliable enough. As a student, a lot of us also like kind of we tend to go and select those tools that has been previously used by another author without even thinking about its validity and reliability. But I highly encourage you to go beyond that, and then just the rationale that a certain article has used it or certain author has used it previously is not enough. So you need to check the validity and reliability of the tool, and if the tool is not validated and reliable, check the reliability in your population. You may want to do that before you do your main study. In the result section, look for what are the main findings. And then when you look for main findings, like don't go by like what the authors have presented their main findings as, but always try to look at the tables and the major results of the articles, and then kind of conclude the main findings based on the results or data that has been presented rather than on what authors have reported. And then a discussion section. I feel like as a reader, when I read article, I feel like I learn a lot from discussion section. So check like in the discussion section how the findings have been compared with other research, whether or not the results are contextualized. Try to understand the context and then see similarities and differences in results based on different contexts. And also very important is to understand the possible bias. Now, when you extract and analyze, I would recommend you use review matrix, and this is also part of your assignment for the day. I find this matrix very helpful. So list the authors here, reference geographical site, and then critically analyze the design, population outcome measure, exposure measure, and analysis. What are the main results, strengths, and limitations of the research? And in terms of organizing your readings, you can use one or combinations of these categories. So after preparing your matrix, you need to organize the literature. So you can take one or combination of these categories. So chronologies, like for example, what happened to hypertension prevalence since 1981? Advancement, like what are the milestones, advancement in tuberculosis treatment over the time. You can group all of the articles based on each milestones. Also like strengths, based on the strength of the article. For example, you can summarize the findings from cross-sectional studies, from different case control cohort or intervention studies. Also, you could summarize it based on the geographical location or your research questions. Like if you have multiple research questions, you can categorize it based on that. And finally, you would be writing your literature review. And then while you write, after organizing the literature review, you have to convey these 4 things in writing. So first is report the status, who did what in previous research, and then also critical evaluation, that's what was missing in the previous research, what was the gap. It may be in terms of methodological limitation or gap in knowledge or any unexplored population, etc. And then you can also group the articles based on a different criteria that we've talked earlier. You can use one or combination of these categories. And finally, it is very important that you place your views about how it is connected to your research question. So state clearly what was the major takeaways of this literature review, what are the main gaps, and how your research is going to address that gap. So thank you for today. This is all, and I hope to see you next day. Thank you.